Let me ask you something. Have you ever caught yourself in a moment of pain, again, and thought, how the hell am I here again? Different person, different city, different year, same ache. It's like life keeps putting you in the same emotional hallway, just changing the wallpaper. You keep dating the same emotionally unavailable people. You keep sabotaging good opportunities. You keep shrinking yourself to stay acceptable, just like you did as a kid. And no matter how many books you read, affirmations you whisper, or journal pages you fill, keeps happening. What? Because what's running the show isn't what you know. It's what you buried. That's the shadow. The part of you you never invited to the table. The one you exiled when you were 5, 6, 7 years old, because someone made you believe it was bad. It could have been your anger, your need for attention, your weirdness, your need to be touched, held, adored. And so you buried it. You became the good child. You got quiet. You became easy to love by becoming less of yourself. But here's the thing. The shadow doesn't die just because you ignore it. It grows in the dark, and eventually, it finds a way to speak, usually through pain. That pattern you can't escape? That's your shadow's voice. That panic when someone pulls away? That's the child version of you, terrified of abandonment. That rage that explodes out of nowhere? That's the anger you were never allowed to express. The shadow repeats until it's recognized. Because what you reject in yourself doesn't go away. It waits. And it chooses your partners. It writes your stories. It drives your choices, especially the ones that hurt. Not to punish you, but to show you what's still missing. You're not broken. You're just running from the part of you that's tired of being left behind. So how do we change it? That's what we'll go into in the next section. What shadow work actually is, and how to begin without overwhelming yourself. Shadow work isn't a ritual. It's not a trending hashtag. And no, you don't need crystals, incense, or a full moon to begin. Shadow work is simply this: turning toward the parts of yourself you once had to abandon, and giving them space to speak, without judgment. That's it. It's less about becoming something new, and more about unburying what's already there. Your true self. The one that got edited, silenced, cleaned up to survive childhood, religion, trauma, or culture. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're someone who hates confrontation. You say yes too often. You avoid conflict. You prioritize peace, even when you're breaking inside. Most people would say, that's just who I am. But that's not shadow work. Shadow work asks, when did I first learn that my anger wasn't safe? Maybe your parents screamed when you spoke up. Maybe your needs were ignored unless you stayed quiet. So now, anytime you feel anger rising, you shove it down. You shrink. And then one day, you snap. At someone you love. Or you ghost them completely. Or you burn out and don't understand why. That's your shadow finally screaming to be heard. Shadow work is turning toward that hidden anger, not to shame it, but to listen. It asks, what need was never met? What boundary was never allowed? What would I say if I believed I wouldn't be punished for it? You're not trying to erase the shadow. You're trying to reintegrate it. You're saying, I see you. I hear you. You don't have to fight me anymore to get attention. And when that happens, the pattern breaks. Not because the world changes, but because you stopped abandoning yourself. Pause here, soft reflective tone. Shadow work isn't a quick fix. It's not a checklist. It's a lifelong process of reclaiming what was once pushed into the dark. But the more you meet yourself there, the less often life has to scream to get your attention. So, how do you actually start? How do you begin shadow work without spiraling into guilt, shame, or confusion? Here's the truth. You don't dive headfirst into your deepest trauma. You start at the edges, where it's still tender but not bleeding. You start slow. safe, steady. Let me walk you through 3 steps. Just 3. You don't have to do them perfectly. You just have to show up honestly. Step 1. Notice your emotional spikes. Whenever you overreact, pause. That moment when someone criticizes you and you implode inside. You hear a no, and your chest tightens. Someone cancels plans and you spiral into, they hate me. That's not your logical brain reacting. That's your shadow flinching. Something old is getting poked. Instead of numbing it or powering through, ask, what does this reaction remind me of? Not to solve it, just to name it. Naming is the first form of reclaiming. Step 2. Journal with the voice you usually silence. Shadow journaling isn't about surface emotions. It's about letting the part of you speak that you usually shut down. Try this. Open a blank page and ask, what part of me am I most ashamed of? If that part could talk, what would it say? Let the voice be raw. Let it be angry, selfish, ugly, needy. Don't filter it, because that's the voice that's been shoved in the dark. Shadow work is where you give it a mic. And once it's allowed to speak, it doesn't have to scream through your relationships anymore. Step 3. Practice safe self-confrontation. Pick one small pattern. Something that keeps happening in your life that hurts but doesn't destroy you. Example. You keep over-explaining yourself in text. You ghost people the moment you feel vulnerable. You get defensive when someone gives feedback. Ask yourself, what belief is underneath this? And then ask, who taught me that? The answer might hurt. But now, you're the one in the room. You're the adult. You get to decide what stays and what goes. That's shadow work. And that's how the pain begins to break its pattern. Pause gently. If you take nothing else from this video, let it be this. The shadow doesn't mean you're broken. It means part of you was exiled before it ever had a chance to grow. And now it's just asking to come home. Let it. Even if it knocks with dirty hands. Even if it speaks in a voice you're scared to hear. Let it in. Because behind it is everything you've been searching for in other people. So, what if you try? You notice the pattern. You journal. You face the shadow. And then, next week, you still lash out. You still shut down. You still choose the person who feels familiar instead of safe. Does that mean you failed? No. It means you've started. See, shadow work isn't a single awakening. It's not, I see the pattern, now I'm free. It's spiral-shaped. You circle around the same wound, again and again. But from new angles, you get stronger, clear. But the old pain? It shows up like a test. Not to punish you, but to show you what's ready to be seen differently this time. You're not repeating the same mistake. You're being offered a new chance to choose differently. Sometimes you'll still flinch. Sometimes you'll still react. That's okay. Because healing doesn't always look like confidence. Sometimes healing looks like not running, even if your hands are shaking. Sometimes healing looks like crying after you set a boundary, not before. Sometimes it's just pausing and saying, I want to abandon myself right now, but I won't. And that's massive. Repetition isn't a curse. It's the invitation. The door keeps appearing, because you're finally strong enough to walk through it. Quiet pause. So if you find yourself asking, why does this keep happening to me? Try answering, because I'm finally ready to understand why it started. And maybe for the first time in your life, you don't need to fix it right now. You just need to face it and stay. You are not your trauma. You are not your patterns. You are not your shadow. You are the one who's witnessing it. That alone changes everything. Because before you were inside the pain. Now you're facing it. And the moment you can face it, you're no longer controlled by it. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's your echo. It's every version of you that had to survive in silence. And now it's asking, will you see me? Will you stop running? Will you choose me before you choose anyone else? This work is hard, because it's real. It's not surface-level healing. It's not a productivity hack. It's not becoming more likable. Shadow work is becoming whole. And wholeness is messy. It means loving the parts of you that don't know how to be loved yet. It means walking through discomfort, without turning away. It means saying, even if no one ever fully gets me, I will not abandon myself again. You don't need to be perfect to be worthy. You don't need to be healed to be lovable. You don't need to erase your past to create your future. You just need to start listening to the parts of you you've been taught to mute. And in doing so, you don't just break the cycle. You become the person you were always meant to be, before the world told you who to be instead. If this resonated, if you're tired of the loop, the pain, the patterns, and you're finally ready to look inward instead of outward, subscribe. Not because I need the numbers, but because you're not alone. We're doing this work together, one layer at a time. Welcome back to yourself.